Welcome back to the Challenge Insiders. We're recapping the All-Stars finale episode for the Challenge. And Chantal and I, we're kind of like Janae in this situation. We've left our best partner, Elton, aka Drew Angelcake, for the last podcast of the season, or I should say second last, because we'll probably be talking about the reunion at some point as well. Drew, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking about the finale.
Yeah, what a finale, Chantal. What did you think of the finale episode?
It was just everything I needed in an episode. I wasn't sure how they were going to be able to have 12 people start this finale, and is it going to work, and am I going to enjoy it? And they figured it out. They have the creative minds on this season, because they did a lot right in this final. I loved the episode. I cried, I laughed, I gagged. Like, what else could you ask for the challenge?
Now, Drew, we didn't have you on for the previous part of the finale. It was a two-part episode. What sort of stood out for you, I guess, in the previous episode leading into this episode? Was there anybody that surprised you, anybody that you thought did a bit better here? Obviously, ultimately, I think it was a bit of a surprise result for us to see who ultimately takes the whole thing home. But was there anything that sort of stood out for you over the first episode of this two-part finale?
I think I was just really impressed with Janae and her being in her first ever final, and then her just coming out the gates and just like going hard and picking all the right partners for all the right checkpoints, and her getting into third place by the time we're like leaving off and heading into checkpoint 4, leading into checkpoint 5. Jemmy, I'll say it surprised me being up there in fourth place, double-digit points. And Darrell is always going to be up there. Like, he's always going to be 1 or 2. I just expect that from him in the finals. I think more than anything, I think there were some players that I was really surprised about, like Mark and Ruthie and Alton being lower on the bottom as we're heading into this next episode, the finale, finals part 2. I think that's what the ultimate shocking thing were when heading into this next part.
Yeah, I think for me, the shocking part, especially in that first part, was Kellyanne, and we spoke about that between myself and Chantal, struggled throughout the first day quite a bit, but we see her come back really strong in this specific part, or the second leg, or the second episode of the finale. And I do have to say, I wonder how close she would have gotten to the top if she didn't have as bad of a start like she had in the beginning, because we came into this podcast, Chantal, last week, and I said, I give Kellyanne a 10% chance at winning this whole thing based on the fact that she's so far behind. But I was sweating bullets by the end of leg 4 when I saw that she actually had 13 points, with Darrell and Yes at 18. She was starting to catch up, and she had a really strong performance throughout this episode as well.
Yeah, no, with like Kellyanne, like we obviously knew that she was strong. She's been to a final before, not really the same as this final is right now, but like she has an idea of what's going to be expected of her. And I think, though, part of it, she was never really that great at strategizing. And so that's where you're seeing where the more strategic players like Jemmy and Janae were able to excel, because they were thinking about who they wanted to be partnered with when they could tell what certain aspects of the leg was going to be. And so I think that actually is what hurt her, because I think that obviously the first puzzle in the beginning really, really hurt her. And then she didn't have any choice. But I'm really happy that she was able to come back, because I think it would have been really devastating for her to go out like that. Like early on, like that would have been so bad. I actually thought that they were setting up when they were showing those clips of Yes and Kellyanne by the window, kind of talking about, how people are going to be running the race. I was thinking that she was going to come up and it was going to be a tie, and then that we're going to have to split the money. Like that's what I was thinking was going to happen. That was like my tinfoil hat I was putting on, but it didn't. But I'm happy that she was able to get back to the top of the pack.
Yeah, now who would have known that Kellyanne, her strength would be to be like almost like a human trash can. She can eat all of these reapers. She can eat all of the meat and things that are getting put there in front of her. She's the one in leg 4 that actually pushes Darrell up the mountain. And we're sort of left in the previous episode with a little bit of a misdirect with Darrell saying he needs a medic. And Chantal was really nervous about that. And I said to her, don't worry, no one's going home. I just feel like this is typical production throwing something out there. He maybe complained for a second, but she ends up pushing him all the way up there, and they do get first place here. A lot of that is just by sheer will of Kellyanne pushing Darrell's butt up that mountain. And this seems to have been a very, very tough finale for Darrell. He did well throughout, but like he said, this is the first time he's done like a 2-day leg finale. Previously, I think most of it, I haven't seen his earlier seasons when he did the finales. Most of those seasons, Drew, were they over like 1-day periods? And is this more like a new school thing going over 2 days?
Oh, yeah. It was introduced like later down the line of these multi-day finals. Like they did that as a huge twist, and people were like really shocked that they were going to be doing a final for more than 1 day. Normally it took an afternoon. It was just like a normal, like, oh, we're doing it. It's going to be just a longer daily challenge. I remember back in like the Inferno where it was like the 7 deadly sins, and they would just go from checkpoint to checkpoint. It was just 7 checkpoints. One of them was just eating a whole bunch of taquitos and then just holding them down and then just run. Like you got to go find some things in a piñata that you had to smash open like 50 piñatas, and then you had to figure out, like, it was just some really quick mini games that they had to do over a period of time. And it was just normally a day. Whereas now they really make you sleep in an ice cave or standing on a stump while your partner's in a tent right next door. So, yeah, they really introduced that way later down in the series. But now it's like a normal thing. It's just we're going to be doing a 2-day final. Like we expect 2 days at least.
Yeah.
How impressed, Chantel, were you with Anisa in this specific leg with Yes? I mean, they got second place here, so we didn't see much about that dynamic and how Yes got her. But I mean, Yes, throughout this whole finale, did extremely well, right? Because he had to have placed in the top 2 in most of these instances. And Anisa, in a lot of these legs, she was sort of seen as lagging behind a little bit. For her, it was more about finishing the finale opposed to actually, placing first or second. But he still gets a really good performance out of her here in the specific spot, because that could be the bogey for you whenever you get like a Big Easy or a Anisa. That could be the one that you lose points on. And I feel like this potentially is the reason that Yes ended up winning this whole thing, because his one specific partner that he was supposed to have that may have caused them some points or made him lose some points didn't end up losing him any points in this league.
I think it's actually the way that Yes was. I know we've been talking about how all the men on the season have been quite kind to their partners. They've been motivating. They haven't been demeaning them. They haven't been saying that they could do this without them. And so I think that, he just was always so kind, and he even learned that he has like a lot of experience with hiking and stuff like that, and so he's probably was giving her a lot of tips on like, okay, we're going to be doing this, like breathe this at this point. And I think that he probably offered her a lot of assistance and help with it that maybe they didn't show, but I think it's just because he was really kind, really generous, and then also really experienced in kind of hiking type environments.
Well, I also think just real quick, I think also that there was somebody on my comment section on my last video that said that he was very strategic. And I think he was one of the more strategic players when picking partners. And also it helped because we talked about Kellyanne kind of muffling the first puzzle to where she kind of doesn't have a choice on who her partner is going to be. She's like hoping somebody would pick her earlier on, and then they could like maybe get a first place finish. Whereas Yes has always been like first, second, really up at the top to where he was able to pick like second or third overall the next partner. So he was actually had like a lot of his own fate in his own hands, and being able to like really have the lay of the land, get to see what, it's going to be biking. I feel like I can get this partner, Janae, could help me out here. And I feel like she's going to do her best. She's really feeling it, getting the first leg done first. So I think he was actually the most strategic, and he had a lot of like his own fate in his own hands with how well he was placing and doing early on in these finals.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the first episode, specifically, the thing that stood out for me was the fact that, when they were doing the puzzle, Yes had the last bit of the puzzle in his hand, and he refused to put it in until he got the partner that he wanted finishing that, and then he went into the rowing section of it. So right throughout the whole thing, you can have all these rules, but if you've got someone like Yes who's smart enough to game the system, then, you're still going to end up getting the result that you want to get in the end. And I think that Yes, overall, for me, was surprising. I actually, Chantel, had a look at our draft that we did right at the start, the one that still had Mike in it, because that gave me a really good indication of where we picked Yes. And
it's
you chose very far in the back. And I believe Darrell was chosen as the first guy by Mike, and then Yes was chosen as the third last guy. in our draft pick when we did it, and he was one of the last picks to be chosen because we just didn't know what to expect with him coming into this season. But clearly he's proven himself. He's put himself on the map now for someone that's going to be a massive threat when he comes back in any future seasons. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on because I do want to have a little bit of a conversation around that. The other part in this leg that was quite interesting is we get a little bit of Janae's backstory. We find out that her husband has sadly, lost his job. They had to spend a lot of their savings. And that's something that obviously is very real for a lot of people with a pandemic going on at the moment. A lot of people around the world have lost jobs and things like that because businesses had to shut down. It's one of the reasons that I believe Darrell came back to do the challenge because he had his own business going, but that started slowing down. And for the first time, he had an opportunity to start doing the challenge again. So it really... I felt really emotionally attached to Janae throughout this whole episode, and she was one of my picks as well. But even towards the end, where I felt the most emotional about her finishing where she finishes in that third place towards the end of the episode. But it does bring back, I think Chantal mentioned this before, should there have been a second place and a third place prize money out there? And one of the things that I also want to put out there is, should there have been a female and male category? Because I always believe there should be a female and male category. I don't think it is fair to have, we've only had it twice now in the history of the show where we've seen a female outright beat guys in these shows. So it's really tough to do.
I 100% think that there should have been a male and female winner, especially if you look at the very end of, part 2, the first people that placed or that finished were all men. And not to say that the women weren't, capable of getting first, but the physical element of climbing that mountain, it's just easier for a man to do. They have longer legs and they have different kind of cardiovascular strength. So it's just they really should have, Kellyanne, I think, should have gotten a piece of that pie because out of all the women that were doing that final, she was able to get to the top first. And so, yeah, I 100% think that they should have had a male and female finish. And that made me be a surprise at the end or something. But I think it was unfortunate.
I agree. I also think that if not the men and woman winner, I think that maybe a second or third place. I mean, we brought back lifesavers. We brought back so many things of past challenge history. It's why not have something for second and third place as well? And it also makes for incentive. If there's only one winner and the point system is totally outbalanced, and then you're falling back in the hike. I mean, I'm happy that everyone in the game and is such a competitor for themselves that they are going to push themselves to want to finish this, but easily half the people could have just been I'm done. Alton on this night portion was if this wasn't for Janae or if I wasn't partnered with Janae, I would have just left because he felt so far away from this. He was pretty much mathematically done unless a huge collapse in the beginning portion and he could beast out on this last climb. But he was done. He was on his last straw. He was done with Kellyanne, complaining all the time. He was done with being so supportive to his partners. He was just I would have been gone. You don't even. So I feel there should have been some incentive. I mean, $500,000 is huge, even if you cut it 3 ways, or not evenly 3 ways, but even if you cut it into 3 different portions, I mean, that's still a good chunk of change. Even if you cut it in half for the best man and best woman competitor in the game, I mean, that's still $250,000 in your pocket, right? And that's huge. That's a ton of money that could really help somebody, especially Janae, who we just talked about her struggles. So I mean, that would have worked out huge for her, and I'm sure would have been I'm cool with splitting the money. I got here first, but I'm cool with it, kind of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I don't want to go too hard on the show because this was the first All-Star iteration we've seen. I'm sure they're going to look at what worked well, what didn't work well. I'd be shocked if the next season isn't some sort of a duo season, or if they don't mix it up, because I mean, that's the name of the game for the challenge, right? They don't normally, unless it's a skull twist, do the same thing back to back, in seasons.
So one thing that I think is really great, though, about how it all ended up with Yes being the winner, spoiler alert, if you don't know that already, is that it shows that somebody that hasn't been on the series for the last 20 years, that they still can come back and win. And so I think that it's actually going to really entice some of the people that we haven't seen in a really long time to maybe come back, that thought that maybe they'd be out of their league, or it's not possible for them to win, or these new bucks are in there and they're just going to be voting out all the old people. I think that it will will allow a lot of interest from people that we haven't seen in a long time. And so I think that it was a perfect showing for that, for the success of maybe having the resurgence of all our old favorites to be coming into want to participate.
Well, I think that works out well too, but also I think just having how much like everybody's loving it, no matter what, if you're a part of it, the production side of it, or if you're the audience, everybody can't stop raving about the show. And I just think that this is like the best case scenario for Mark and the production and Paramount Plus, because everybody can't stop talking about how much they love this. This was so much better than Double Agents, and how much fun everybody was seeing on like having that 90s party. And I think the players that may have not been able to come or were like a little bit hesitant to come will watch this and be like, wow, I want to have fun too. Like, this seems like a great time. I think people are worried that it was going to be like, I don't know, champs versus pros, where it is like carnival games and it's not as exciting like it used to be. But I mean, they're doing some big stuff like in the main season, and then they're also having fun that we are not seeing so much in the main season. So I think the word of mouth from everybody is going to be like, yeah, I want to do this. Sign me up.
Okay,
I was going to say it's a pretty big endorsement when you've got Darrell, who's one of the best to have ever done it, one of the guys who is currently still in the main season, playing the main season, saying that this was just as tough as the actual season that I've just been on. That's a pretty good endorsement.
So I have okay, what's your thoughts on this idea? So fresh meat is kind of part of like old school, the challenge. What if there was like a fresh meat, or we can call it maybe stale meat edition? So old people like me who have been fans of the show this entire time can go on and be like, mentored. Like I'd be partnered with Darrell or something like that. And like, it would be a kind of like a fresh meat season, but it would be people in the same age bracket and fans that have been fans for this whole time, as like one of those like new mix in new energy kind of seasons.
Well, what was the youngest person this season? Wasn't it Janae? She was like 32. So I would qualify for that. I'm all for it. I can go as well. And go for it.
Isn't that fun though? I mean, like, I would love to see some like older people come on the show and like be partnered with all of our fans.
I think you would have to workshop the name though. Stale meat does not just have the same ring as like All Stars or anything.
It was my first thought. Very true.
Yeah, I think the reason that this show has done so well, obviously, is because there is this whole legacy and mythology around the challenge. It's been around for so long. These people haven't been seen on, and I mean, even the shows that I don't know at all prior to the challenge that they played on. So this is like just there was this fan base out there already wanting something like this to come back and watch the show. And these are like I said it previously, it's the best thing that the challenge could have done, because I do think that the new model is working. I hear there's a lot of negativity out there. It's a lot of the older fans that don't like where the challenge is heading currently, but the challenge is also gaining a lot of new fans. So what they're doing is they're gaining new fans, but they're also retaining the old fans. So it's a checkmate move by production and by everybody that's involved in this, in my opinion.
I know where you're coming from. I can totally see that like they're kind of appeasing everyone. But like, I also am a little bit sad that they don't care about their loyal fans for the last 20 years that like want to support the regular season and have been for 20 plus years. And so, yes, they're kind of like appeasing us by like giving us our all-star season. And I'm grateful, thankful, absolutely. But it actually really just shows me how much I don't enjoy the main season as much as this one. And so I just wish that they would just maybe do something that we want with the new seasons, like why do they have to completely push us away and be like, okay, we're just going to try to save you over here. And then we want all these new people with Instagram followers and like, that can post a lot and they have a lot of social media following. I'm like, it's just a different show. I wish that they made another show for those people.
Well,
so
it's kind of like, I just wanted to throw this out there. It's like with this All-Star season, it's kind of like them trying to do like what everybody has been saying is that they want to see more OGs back on the cast. So instead of putting more OGs on the cast, they make All-Stars, but they're so worried about if there is an audience for it that they just put it on Paramount Plus. One, to get subscribers, and then two, they're just like trying to test out the waters. And it's doing so well, but now it's like so synonymous with the like being able to be uncensored and everything, that they're just going to probably keep it on Paramount Plus no matter what. And then you're going to have just the new one on MTV. And it's like, it is sad that they're going to do that and just have a lot of newer people on the like Double Agents or Double Agents 2, whatever we're getting next. But it is that thing where it's like you are excited for what could be the potential, but also nervous because we've seen what happens when, like, say, a TV show or a competition show just gets pretty people and then puts them in the house and go, let's see how we do this. It's like that was the Big Brother kind of like outline for so long, and now it's kind of like a laughing stock right now, and they're really trying to bring back their stock value. And it's like, no, you've lost us. You've done this for like 9 seasons, and we can't trust you.
That's another thing too, is that I think they outlined it in the after show, that they were all fans of the challenge. They were fans of the Real World or Road Rules or both. They went on those shows and then they were fans. They're like, oh my God, we got chosen to be part of the challenge now. Like it's kind of like they were selected as like people out, they were already in the family, and they have a love for the show. And that's like, I think the difference with like the new school cast of the current seasons is that there are people that are just been like outsourced from another show because they want to be on TV and they want to make some money. Cool, but they're not super fans. And I think that that's what I really liked about seeing the people that were doing All Stars, is that they loved getting to know each other. They loved being on the challenge. They loved like the whole reminiscing and like, you know, this is their youth. And I love that about the All Star season. And we don't get that at all. It's just really about people making it a paycheck. And so I think that that's also something that they should be kind of taking a look at, is like, maybe if you want to find people with big social media followings, fine, go for it. I get it. We're in a new age. But can you find, I'm sure there's 30 of them that like really love the challenge. Like there has to be. So I wish that they would just have their vetting a little bit differently.
I want to say, like, there is a lot of really good, and I think I said this previously when Drew was on there as well. I know I'm the defender here of what they're trying to do to a certain degree. I don't think that they're doing everything perfectly. I do think that there's certain things that they're doing wrong. I've said it before, casting for me is off. Some of the people that they're getting on, I'm not excited to see what Fessy is going to do next season, for instance, or what that specific Big Brother trio is going to do. I'm not excited by that, and I'm a fan of Big Brother. You know what I mean? Like, but it gives people the wrong impression within the challenge realm of what Big Brother could offer in the future. So, Chantal, it's going to be a task for me and you and Drew. If you want to jump in, it's an open invitation. I think we need to do a podcast in the off season about who would be great additions. Yeah, like how to fix it, who would be great additions potentially for the future of the challenge. And let's hope that it gets enough hype out there that people look at this and say, oh, we want to see a Zach Ranch from, you know, Big Brother go on and do something like the challenge, because he's going to be crazy. You know, like there's some good people out there that we could potentially see on the show that could make it exciting again. But I hear what you're saying. Let's move on to the actual Challenge All-Stars finale and look at sort of leg 5 here. Leg 5 is where they have to eat the food. And one of the lines that stood out for me was Ruthie saying that, you know, coming from a Filipino household, she knew almost everything that was on that plate except for maybe like 1 or 2 things. Now, I can tell you, I've got 2 Filipino flatmates that live with me, and I've never seen them eat anything similar to this. I don't know. This might be some really old school Filipino food, but I've never seen them eat anything that looked like that. And for me personally, on this challenge, I would have struggled. I would have been like Kellyanne. It would have come in and straight out, because I've got, probably similar to Janae, a weak stomach when it comes to eating really gamey and wild food. Also, a really funny scene here is Elton having the time of his life, doing fine dining, classic music playing. Absolutely love this scene. But I've got to be honest with you guys. Like, I reckon this would be my worst fear if I personally had to do a finale and I had to eat this food.
For me, okay, I don't eat meat really in real life anymore, but I could eat gamey meat. I think that that's fine. Like the texture is what really grosses me out. So if it's like rancid and slimy, that I think would make me gag. But I think that I could like plug my nose from the inside and like just like get down like chewable things. But if it's like off and slimy, like that's where it would get, I wouldn't be able to take the texture of like rotten. You know what I mean? You know that rotten slime that happens.
Yeah.
I can't handle. And then if it comes back up and then having rotten slime barf flavor, like I don't think I'd be able to do that. But I think I can get down like any of the like intestines or whatever. Like I think I'd figure it out.
You can eat the snout.
Probably. Like at least the consistency is not as revolting, you know? You just have to chew it.
Yeah, I think I would have no trouble eating what they did. Like, being a fan of the challenge, you kind of know what the worst of the worst is. And one of the worst is like Rivals 2 Nightmare Island, when they're drinking the fish stew and all the bugs. Like, that was the worst of the worst. Along with the Dirty 30 Redemption Challenge, where Hunter and Anisa won back in, where they had to eat the sewer rat head and everything. Like, that was absolutely the worst. So to me, coming up to that would have been fine. I think I would have really struggled on the peppers though. Like, I love spicy stuff, but it does not like me. So I easily start to sweat. If a medium salsa is just a little bit hot, then I'm just done. Like, I look like I came from a pickup basketball game. Like, it's just bad.
So you're like that. You're like that kid that is lactose intolerant but still likes ice cream.
Yeah, pretty much. The first time I went to Chipotle, I was like, they were like, "What salsas do you want?" And I'm like, "I like salsa. Just give me all the salsas." So they layered it up, and then 2 bites in, I was done. Like, I was tapping out. It was bad.
I'm okay with spice, but like those looked really hot. But I think I'd been able to handle it better than half of those people. Yeah, but it looked hot.
It took them 2.5 hours, the last team, to finish this. So, I mean, by the time you get to your food 2 hours in, it's already cold as well. Like, you know, I don't like cold meat. Like, I want to eat, like, when it's still nice and hot, I just want to get it.
I
would probably do, like I said, yeah, like, I would eat it the way that Kellyanne ate it. I would just go very hard from the start. I would probably, half of it would probably come back out. But, I mean, I would do it. I just don't think that, you know, the eating challenge would be my forte at all. But it is going to be interesting because this is another thing where some of the new school players have not, because they're not fans, like you said, Chantal, they don't realize that there's always going to be an eating challenge. And it was funny seeing Janae say, you know, my stomach is already killing me. Luckily, I'm past the eating part. And, you know, listen, it's going to get worse for you from here on out. And we knew what was going to come up ahead. And she ends up being teamed here with Big Easy for this leg. And she has been trying to avoid him throughout the whole finale. So she's getting him at the worst possible spot. And he is trying to get her to quit. And she's like in the top 4, top 3 at this stage in the actual finale. And he's trying to get her to quit so he doesn't look bad for quitting.
Yeah, they're both like, well, if you want to quit, like, I'm okay with it, but I'm not going to quit. But if you want to quit, I'm okay with it, but I'm not going to quit. But you know what? In the end, though, they both ended up sticking through it and completing that, even though, like, poor Jamie looked like death came over her. Like, she did not look good. After that pepper moment, like, I didn't think they would have her back. Like, she was gone. She was gone. She went somewhere. I don't know where Debbie was. She finally is back in the after. Well, I haven't seen the after show, but like, I'm assuming that she's back to her normal self. But she didn't look right for the rest of the challenge.
No way. I will say that I'm more surprised about Darrell and Anisa, who were partnered up with each other, and it took them 2 hours. They were second to last team, and these are 2 competitors that were just on the main season of the challenge, doing the like. They have been doing the seasons longer or more recently than the competitors that are in this final, basically. So it was interesting to see them kind of like lagging back a little bit in this final, or in this portion at least.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, like, he was 2 points behind. I'm just trying to look at my notes now. He was on 29 points and Yes was on 31 points by the end of the challenge. So him sort of coming in last place here, or second last place, and only getting like 2 points, that could have made a massive difference. If he actually ended up getting second or first, or, you know, somebody a little bit higher, he could have won this whole thing. So in some ways, you know, it's really bad, but he struggled just as much as Anisa. There wasn't a weak link in that team. They both struggled to get that food down.
But I do think there was a team that finished before Anisa did. I think that Darrell finished. I could have been the editing as well. I'm not exactly sure how they got that. But if I'm not mistaken, I feel like Darrell finished. And I was like, yes, Darrell. And then another team both partners finish, and then Anisa finished. And so he was pretty close, I believe, to getting at least one spot up, which I think if he had done that, he would have won, or they would have at least tied.
Drawn. Yeah, it would have been potentially a draw. And it's interesting because Anisa, throughout this whole finale, she said, she wanted to prove everybody wrong and that she can run this final and things like that. And she wanted to prove that point to herself, but also to others. I don't think other people are going into the challenge season 37 thinking if they are sort of shackled to Anisa or they potentially could run a final with Anisa, that she's now proven herself. I think she's still going to have a target on her back, and people are still going to be afraid to run a finale with her based off this performance. And it's something that I think that she now needs to be making peace with to a certain degree and just fight for it, try and get into the finale and do your best. But I don't think she's changed the narrative around her based on this finale performance.
No, I think that she needs to get in shape. She wants to change the way people are going to, respect her in the main show, is by doing, the CrossFit, coming in, how Natalie, when she came in, people were terrified of her because she's in such great physical shape. Not to say that she wouldn't be able to finish, but especially with her just wanting to finish, that was her only objective for this particular final in the end. I don't think that it bodes well with people are wanting to have her be their partner. And so I think that she'd have to change the narrative, she'd have to change her physical abilities. And
just one thing, I will say that coming in, doing 14 or 15 seasons of the challenge and kind of only being into 2 finals plus this one, I don't think, even if she finished tied for 3rd place with Janae and Kellyanne, I don't think it would have changed the narrative coming into a house full of 21-year-olds, 24-year-olds who are all just seeing other competitors that could be in either better shape or have done better in their previous show. So I don't know if her doing any better in the finals would have changed any narrative around her coming into the show, into the main seasons that she's going to be in. So it's sad to say, but I feel like for her coming in last place, that this could be used more to being look, she couldn't even do this. But I also don't think her coming in, getting even 2nd place or 3rd place or 4th place, it would have changed much of what anybody was thinking when Fessy's looking for a partner and he does not want to be partnered up with Anisa.
Yeah, I agree. I also wanted to give a shout out here in this section to the editors for really doing Big Easy dirty when he was shaking his head, and they did it in slow-mo. It made it look so much worse, and that's why I love the editors of the challenge. They can take the smallest little moment and create some TV magic around it as well. Now, for the next part of this, they have to stand on a balancing beam to keep a bed upright. So it's the classic one person stays awake while the other person sleeps, but in this case, it's even harder because if you lose your balance or you start nodding away or nodding off, you potentially could send your teammate flying off the bed. So you've got to stay really focused throughout this. And like you said earlier there, Drew, Elton takes one for the team. He looks at Janae as being a little sister, and he's going to stay awake for as much as he can or as long as he can so that she can get a decent sleep, specifically in this challenge. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think the other 2 things that were quite interesting in this part was Yes sort of saying that this whole finale seemed to be up his wheelhouse, being someone that's gone out camping and mountain hiking and sleeping in caves and being in snow and things like that. He said he was sleeping really well. And then the one thing I was going to ask you coming into this specific podcast is Big Easy's comment. I don't know if you were a frat boy at all, but he says he could sleep in a frat house, so he can sleep anywhere. And I was thinking to myself, what do they do to frat people over there? Are you sleeping in the backyard?
I guess. I mean, I only know it from movies, but when I went to college, I didn't have a ton of money going to college. I took a lot of grants and loans out. So when I got there and people were like, you should rush. And I'm like, oh, really? And then I got a brochure and saw how much money it was on top of it to rush. I was like, no way. I'm not doing that. I'll just watch Animal House or whatever. Get out of here. I'm not doing that. Yeah, no. I never did that.
Well, not gonna lie, I actually probably could sleep anywhere. I've worked as a flight attendant for 7 years, and any second you can get some sleep, you can. You do, and so I can sleep anywhere at any time, and I can also be awake really quickly, easily, and work a 24-hour shift and not be terribly horrible to people. So yes, I can understand that though. It's like being able to sleep anywhere. I could probably sleep standing up if I wanted to.
I think it's also just like exhaustion. Like you're just going to be exhausted by the end of this. And once you get to a certain point, you're just going to fall asleep regardless. I mean, even in the finals, I was thinking like, oh, if I was like so excited and the adrenaline was pumping, like thinking of the next day, this is it. We're going to have to go. What's going to be up? It's like you're still just kayak for an hour and a half, 4 hours to get up here, take a bike ride up. You ate some peppers, you hiked down. Now you're standing up. Like at a certain point, you're just going to be like just wanting to pass out nowhere, like anywhere you can. Like it doesn't even matter if you're in a frat house or not, I feel.
Slash, your tummy might be rumbling from those peppers. I don't know if you'll get a comfortable sleep with like that digesting.
Yeah, I found that team dynamic between Janae and Big Easy so funny, and I kind of wish I see them in a future season paired up together for a whole season just to see that dynamic. But Janae was so annoyed by him having the time of his life, snoring, having a good sleep while she's having to stand up there to make sure that he keeps going. But I was living for it. Now, the next morning here, we see TJ coming in on a horse, and like I don't know who said it, but someone is like, "Oh, it looks like something from a Western movie with TJ coming in." And Big Easy asks him if he's done this before, and he says, "Yeah, I do this all the time." And then the producers do TJ dirty here because you see him struggling a bit with that horse, and it's really funny seeing him talk while he was on the horse as well, because it's TJ isn't the most animated person in general, but he was really soft-spoken while he was on that horse at all times. So I feel like he was fearing at any time that horse could just go because, like someone said, it's a pretty wild stallion out there, that he was sitting on.
Did they explain why he was on the horse and what he was actually wearing and why? No? Okay. I wasn't sure if I blinked and missed it. Go ahead.
I actually, I was answering comments for Saturday's Tiny Table Talk episode, and somebody from Argentina who lives there was like, that's a traditional like clothing that is from Argentina. So he was just like getting into character, I guess, and just being like showing off because the country that they're
paying
in.
Respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I would
maybe
think.
for the country.
I thought he was going to keep it on the whole time, but once he got in that helicopter, he was very different clothed.
Yeah, he became very suave again with his sunglasses, his jacket, looking, very, you could almost say James Bond-like, double agent, like when he was back in the helicopter going to the top. But I think it's such a cool thing when you see this last challenge. You wake up the next morning, you look at this massive mountain in the background, and TJ is saying to them, "You see that mountain there at the back?" And I mean, obviously he's done this a few times in different challenges, but that's where you've got to run up, because now you kind of, a lot of the times, I used to be a courier quite a few years ago now, like 10 years or so now, so a delivery driver. And one of the things I used to hate about being a courier is that in the mornings when you went to the courier depot, you would see the mountain of boxes ahead of you that you were going to have to go and deliver for the day. And you knew that it was at least 4 or 5 times in and out of the depot to go and make these deliveries, because in a lot of jobs, you go into work, but you can't physically see the amount of work that is ahead of you. But as a courier driver, you see the mountains of work ahead of you, and it can be quite deflating when you go in the morning and you see that. So kind of the same thing here for the challenges, seeing this massive mountain in the background, knowing that's the sucker I've got to get up, and it would have been quite a run here to try and get up there. But I've got to be honest, when we went into this last section, I immediately thought that Yes is going to be the person to look out for, because like I've said it a few times here on the show, Chantal, Yes has got a runner's physique. He's really skinny. And if it comes to how far you run, muscle mass makes a difference. If you're a bigger boy, hats off to Mark for doing pretty well here in the finale as well. It's not easy to move that much mass from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were seeing throughout this entire finale that Yes was doing really well. He has the right mindset. The only person he seemed to be really annoying was just Alton. But like everybody else seemed to be appreciating his partnership. And like he says at the end that he put the intention that he was going to be winning this, and he was doing a visualization, and he is visualizing himself on the top of that mountain and winning. And I really believe in the power of visualization. And I could just tell by how he was approaching the entire finale, and then that scene with him and Kellyanne at the window, I was like, I really felt that he was going to be at least getting in first or second place. And so I just think that he just knew, he just had it. He just was going. I just knew he was going to win, regardless of his physique. Like I could tell. He just had it. He just had that. I'm going to climb this mountain and I'm going to win. So I wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah.
And he used that strategy as well. Again, to come back to you, Drew, he was smart going up as well, right? You can talk to that. But again, he started using his mind where you'd expect someone like Darrell, who's done this for a very long time, to be thinking that way as well. It is his first final, in a very long time. So I'll give him that. But you would have thought, based on experience, he would have done something similar. And I bet you Darrell will be taking some pointers from what Yes did here if he actually made the final for the season 37. I'm sure he's going to approach it slightly different going into that as well. And one of the things I really love about Darrell is his humility in defeat. I've always said that true champions can shake the hand of the person who's beaten them, and he is very humble in defeat here, which is great to see as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's done a great job. And I think Darrell just came out, like you could tell from the beginning where he just like took off into the woods and just started running. And Yes was like, he must know something I don't, because he's just going out there, and then he easily catches up with them at some point. But this is like a staple for the challenge. If you're somewhere with a mountain, you're going to be climbing it. If it's something with a high peak, a volcano, whatever, like that's going to be the last thing. You're going to have to get it up there. Go. Like we've seen this happen before. So I think everybody was expecting it when they were getting up the morning going like, oh, dang, we're going to get up this daggone mountain.
And I think I was going to say with the fact that, Yes took the time to take off the extra layers of clothes so that he didn't overheat and he wasn't going to gas out. I think that maybe even if Darrell did have the foresight to think like, I should remove some clothing here, I think he was also worried that would take too much time, and he didn't want Yes to catch up to him. And so I think that he thought that he was setting a fast enough pace that he would be able to get to the top of the mountain before he needed to take off his sweater or whatever, his pants. And so, I think that it was maybe a miscalculation of like Yes's ability and being able to catch up to
100%.
him.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as someone that's done a lot of like long distance running myself, doing the obstacle course race stuff that I've done, like funny enough, like I did one 2 years ago that was in Bright, Australia. It's just outside of Melbourne, and we had to run up a mountain as well. And when we got to the top of the mountain, people were actually skydiving from the top of the mountain as we got there. That's how I knew I was pretty high. And what I can tell you is I could relate to both these strategies here. So obviously with Yes setting a certain pace, I've seen it many a times in the past where I'll run a certain pace and people fly past me in the beginning, and then I'll start running past them as if it's a very long distance. If you can keep that pace throughout and you walk less than the person who went hard from the beginning, you're basically going to pass them. And that's exactly what Yes did. And I think that Darrell tried to do is he mentally tried to get in Yes's head, where if he built enough of a lead ahead of Yes and Yes couldn't catch him even when he was pushing, then maybe Yes would give up. And I think that's kind of what Darrell tried to do here. But he definitely, Chantal, underestimated Yes's ability to come back from behind, using those two sticks like an elliptical machine coming on behind him, walking past him. And it was really good to see. But like I said, I really feel like Darrell here being humble in defeat gives me even more respect for him. Obviously, Yes goes past him and says, I can do two things. I can try and help him, which obviously you don't do when 500,000 is up for grabs, or I can do a bit of shit talking. He ends up doing a bit of shit talking with Darrell when he got past him, saying, you should have put me in. You should have gotten rid of me. Be careful what you wish for, Yes, because if you come back next season, I've got a feeling you'll be seeing the arena more than once.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if Yes is going to be coming back. Like, I think that he was definitely doing this for his family that we saw, to see that if he could do it. His kids didn't think that he was going to be able to go in and win. They thought he would be out first or whatever. And so, I don't know if I see him as becoming a staple. I welcome it. But he definitely would have to change up his strategy if that's the case, because no one's going to let him slide on by again. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and to your point where you were talking about Yes's pace, keeping pace and stuff, we saw that with Kellyanne. I mean, she didn't start out very strong. She was in 8th place to start out, and then we saw her just passing people, and she was just like, I'm going to keep a steady pace. I'm going to take it one person at a time. And also, I think something that happened with Darrell was that when you're in such a long race like that, like he mentioned, he was like, I didn't see anybody at one point, and then all of a sudden, Yes just comes out of nowhere. And I think that's where you get in your mental state, because it's like you're just running, he's trying to keep up a steady pace, but then he's like, you get too tired, you start not seeing anybody. He was up in the lead for like a long time. So it mentally gets you. I think we heard from Jemmy early on say, like, how long are we going? How much do we push ourselves today? How much more is there? And I think that also plays a hand in like Darrell trying to figure out, how far am I ahead? Can I walk here? I can't really run here. I don't feel like I can push myself. Maybe I can take a break now. And I think it's just a lot of mental when you're alone in the woods, just trying to follow these like little yellow markers to see TJ. But then all of a sudden you physically can't like get past another person who is just consistently just going at a steady pace. So I think there's a lot of stuff working around that as well.
Yeah, I also think, too, it's easier to be seeing someone ahead of you that you're trying to catch up and trying to get ahead of, as opposed to, like, looking behind you to see if anybody's catching up. Because, like you were saying, Drew, like, you don't know how fast you need to go. You don't know when is appropriate time that you could take a break if you can't see you can't see where the finish line is, and you can't see where your opponents are. So, yeah, I think that he maybe should have, because Johnny Bananas usually plays that strategy. He's like, I don't mind if like they go and gas out in front of me. I know where they are and I know what I need to do if I want to pass them. And so it might have been better if he kept keeping the pace and him keeping up with and so that he could see what he needed like in the tank to be able to pass him at the end. And so maybe Darrell might have a different strategy the next time he goes into one of these things, as well as like you might be able to set the pace if it's like a short race, but for these long ones you might want to be second and know what you need to do to take on first place.
Yeah, but a lot of that also has to do with the fact, if you look at and you look at Darrell could have thought for himself like, I can stick with most of this distance and kind of pace myself from the beginning. But if you know that potentially is a little bit faster than you on the sprint, you're going to try and get ahead of him a little bit, So it's about timing. How far ahead do you get for that last sprint? And I think that when Darrell came across that last bend and he saw the flags of TJ at the top and he saw quite a distance ahead of him, he knew he wasn't going to catch up. So I think that at that point, he probably knew the penny dropped and it was like, no, there's no way I'm catching up here. But rumor innuendo has it that Darrell will be back on season 37. I haven't listened or looked at the latest news, so you guys fill me in if I'm wrong here. But I think that Darrell, potentially, this will motivate him more to come back for another season to try and win, because if he did win it here, he might have easily decided to go back to his normal life, get back into his own business and things like this. But I think Darrell is a champion. He's got a winner's mindset. The fact that he congratulated here, I think this leaves him hungry to come back and prove himself. And the best in the game are the people that can't quit and want to come back to prove themselves again and again, even if they don't make it. It's the reason why Johnny Bananas pushed himself for so many years to get a win again before he decided he wanted to sort of stop doing what he was doing. CT is a bit of a freak of nature because, he's done recently very well. I mean, being at 41 doing the main season, and he's continuing to come back and things like that. But I do feel like Darrell is not going to rest until he gets a championship, because it's been so long and he wants that 5th championship really bad.
And I think that he slightly got robbed in season 36 because, so with that particular challenge, like they're supposed to I was waiting for them to be digging in and like inch by inch. And like, I was waiting for those to who has the most heart, like pull them. Like I was so excited for this challenge because it was just really going to be sure will. And then there's too much like slack on the rope, and it was just like end up being a speed demon contest. And that wasn't what I was expecting, and neither Darrell. So I think that I agree that he's going to want to come back and win. And I think that he has the capabilities of winning the main season because he's really good. He's good with his partners. I think that if he's partnered with somebody new, they're going to like him as well. And it seems like he can sort of fit in with some of these alliances. If Amber B's on it, he will be able to be back in with her as well. And so I'm still hoping that Darrell gets another win for these more extreme finals. He deserves it. And he's, I want to see it happen for him.
And I have to say that Darrell has always been in great shape, but when looking at like some of his older seasons and then watching him train in a hotel room during the quarantine, waiting to be on the challenge season, he just looks better than ever. Like he just has more abs than anybody I've ever seen. And then he just looks like he doesn't age. So to me, of course, why wouldn't he want to come back? And also, I mean, he's probably getting a good good lump sum coming back in.
Yeah.
I mean, see, that's why I think CT coming on. Yeah. He's like, I win, cool, but I'm gonna get a giant lump sum if I get out on episode 2. Like, oopsie, I'm still getting like 80 grand in my bank account at least. Like, let's go, kind of thing. Like, it's better than going to a day job for 10 hours trying to get 2 weeks of vacation pay, kind of thing. It's like.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I think at this point, CT will continue to go on as long as he can on the challenge. So obviously the yes part here, I personally think yes will come back. I think that, he said, I am happy for somebody to come and try and take the crown. I think he's putting the challenge out there. He even said, like, listen, I'll go show these young bucks a thing or two on that other show. So he was throwing shots that way. And I would love to see him play because I actually think that he's in physically better shape than CT. And I think that he's got a lot of the same strengths that CT has in regards to puzzles, and I think he's suited for finals. It's just the case now moving forward is, will people allow him to get to a final? And I think that that's not going to happen. I think he's going to start getting thrown in a lot if he comes back on the next All-Star season. I want to touch on the 2 people that were lagging behind here in the whole finale. We've got Big Easy and Anisa running together the whole way, and Big Easy waits for her and says, we're doing this thing together. At this point, they knew that they weren't going to win it. They were too far behind on points, but it was really cool to see Big Easy and Anisa work together to get across the finishing line there. I don't know if there's much more you guys wanted to add on that, but I thought it was a really cool moment. And then, like I said, if you look at how people finished here towards the end, you do get I believe Kellyanne was the first female to finish, like we said. Really great performance from her. I think Kellyanne and Janae both finishing in 3rd overall. They were robbed a potential first place championship women's title at this stage, and it would have been really cool to see Janae finally win something. I felt the most connected with Janae's story because I've seen her earlier seasons, and I agree she was a shell of her form of herself on those seasons, and she seemed really insecure at times because I think she had people around her that who really talked down on her and made her feel little throughout the.
She dated Zach.
Exactly.
That was rough.
It's like,
yeah. So what a cool experience. Do we think we see her back, or do we think this is the cherry on top of the cake for a Janae, and she's kind of come back and proven herself to a certain degree? Because she can give more if she can get more in shape. This was 7 months after giving birth, right? So I'm assuming that if there's another All-Stars, she'll be in a lot better shape even coming into that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there because, in her previous season, she's quite petite and like she wasn't necessarily like, working out all the time, but she was just smaller. And I think that, after she maybe does some training after having a baby, like it was only less than a year ago before she went on that show. I do think if she gets closer to, the size and physique she was before children, she would probably be able to come back and do a little bit better. Like she just needs to do a little bit better and then she has it. So I think that it's probably going to be motivation for her to be even in better shape to come back and see if she can actually snag the win because she doesn't have to do that much work.
Yeah, I think the top 3 finishers should get the first calls. They should be the ones that get the first option of like, hey, you did so great. Would you want to come back for a season 2 and try to match what you did this season or do better kind of thing. Like, I think that should just be a rule. I know that a lot of people want to see a lot more of their favorites or people that we haven't seen in forever. And I welcome wanting to see Evelyn and Landon and Coral. If we can bring them in, that would be great. But I also think that you did so well on this season that if you come in the top 3, then it's you get the first option if you want to be on the cast, and we'll sign your name up now and give you a call when we got an official date kind of thing. But I would love to see Janae back.
I would even take this entire cast over again. That's how much I just enjoyed watching these people. I don't need it necessarily to be shaken up that much for me to have an enjoyable challenge season. Obviously, I do want to see more people, but it's just they're just so entertaining and they just love the show so much. And that you were asking about, with Big Easy and Anisa finishing last, there's something that I love about the little family that they created on the All-Star season. You could tell that they all really loved each other and they all really wanted to see each other do well and they wanted to see each other finish. And I really like that camaraderie. I really like that family element that was kind of brought back. And so I'm so happy that everybody finished, even though it was a super hard final, because that gave me the little bit of the itchy heart. You know, I'm like, oh, they all finished. It was so hard, and they're not winning any money, but they did it together. I'm like, yes, I love it.
I do have a question, just real quick. I mean, if we do have a lot of these players coming back for a season 2, do we think that it's going to be a lot more intense, or do we think like it's going to be a lot more cutthroat? Because we get the inaugural season. We haven't seen these players in a long time. They're becoming friends. They're like reconnecting with everybody, but now they know what it takes to get to a final. They know what it takes to get to that money. And it's like, will they now be more inclined to politic and be like, will Darrell be more forthright being like, okay, we need to get out this person before we get to the finals. I'm going to try to like rank myself better. I want this person, if I'm going to be partnered with them in the finals, I want to bring them in instead of this other person. Like, will we see a lot more women wanting to throw Kendall in, but all the men in the deliberation being like, no, we don't want to see Kendall in the elimination because we want to be partnered up with her at some point in the finals. And I think there was a lot of deliberations where people were volunteering or kind of just been like, whatever, like I'll go, or just all unanimous going that way. But I think, do we think that it's going to be different mindsets coming in, especially if majority of the cast is from the first season?
I definitely think that people are going to be playing more strategically, and I think there's going to be a lot more fights like Anisa having with Hisela. You know, it's going to be kind of a battle of old school mindset, new school game, new school prize money. And so I do think that more strategy is going to be coming out and more politicking, absolutely. And I think people are going to be in it more to win. I think this one, people didn't like, okay, what is this going to be? Like, okay, we're going to do it's 2.5 weeks. Like, no big deal. Like, they're going to go easy on us. You know, they even joked that they thought it was going to be carnival games and super easy. And it's like, oh, this is no joke. It's for a lot of money. I think that if they're coming back after watching it, or if they're coming on after watching it, I think that they are going to be coming on to win for sure. And they're going to do what it takes to get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I really hope that is the case, because that was my only negative to this season, was the fact that I felt like it was too kumbaya at times. Like, I mean, yes, basically, Yes needs to thank Anisa for saving him that one round with his speech that to me didn't even make that much sense, and she ended up not voting him in. I think he could have won that specific arena as well. I'm not saying he would have definitely lost it, but she's definitely to blame in a certain way for keeping him there. But I think similar for everybody that was there, they probably didn't realize how much of a threat he was going to be going into the finale. The key thing for me is that they need to lengthen or the gameplay, or have a couple of extra episodes, or have a couple more rounds where people are forced to turn against each other. Because when they brought in the twist with you being able to call anyone down to come and partner with you, I thought that was a really cool twist. It forced people to, like, even Kendall being called down, no one could have saved. Like, the guys couldn't have saved Kendall at that point because it was Nehemiah's choice to call Kendall down, you know? So I think that things like that, to me, we need to see it play out a little bit further. We need to see more purges or more people getting cut before the finale. Otherwise, what you're going to see is you're going to have 12 people team up together early on out of the 20, and they're just going to say, we're going to stick together because we're happy to run this finale with this 12 going forward. But that number needs to go down, in my mind, to, like, say 10 people, 5 guys, 5 girls, or something like that, and then move from there. But overall, great season. Really enjoyed getting to know people that I've never seen play the game before. Standout for me was someone like Ruthie, who I really started liking throughout the season. I think she had a very solid season. I never knew who she was before. I didn't know who Yes was. Yes, obviously, ultimately wins this whole thing and really impressed me throughout. And overall, my heart got broken twice because I lost my Tenderoni. I lost Derek, who were my 2 main boys for going all the way and winning this thing. So it gave me everything that I wanted. And I will be back for season 2. I will be watching it again, and I hope that they continue to improve and add on this. Drew, final thoughts. What do you think they should do differently coming into next season to give us? You mentioned a couple of old school people that could really bring some spice. I am aware who Landon is. I'm aware who Evelyn is. And I do like both of those specific players. Do we think that someone like a Kenny will ever be called back, or is that a no-go zone for the challenge? I've seen some stuff online, so it's a no-go. Okay, because he was a good
No.
TV character. I didn't know about all the other stuff. I would have loved to see him just based on that, but sadly, if there's some truth behind it, probably won't see him come back.
Well, and also there was a lot of I will mention that there was a lot of where he made 6 finals in a row or 7 finals in a row, some ridiculous number like that. And it was just that he had his hand in all the politics, and it just became sort of predictable on how everything was going to go in the season when he was on. I mean, he really dominated those seasons with the JEK alliance and then all the women that would just be with them, and they could really control the house and whatever they wanted to do. So I'm more inclined to bring on people that haven't been on in a while, that maybe some players that we don't know, or a lot of the newer watchers of the challenge won't know, because then they could really come in, they want to prove something, they want to prove themselves, and it could be a completely different experience than what they first were on the challenge. Kind of like Laterian. I mean, I think a lot of people saw his resume and was like, oh really, he's on here? But he came up and he showed up and really wanted to change how people perceived him on the challenge. I loved it. It blew my expectations out of the water. I was cautiously optimistic, especially coming after Double Agents and Total Madness and seeing all the cast, and you're just wondering what they could do. I just thought it was super entertaining. It really brought back the old challenge vibes that I've been missing dearly. It brought back all the fun moments. There could be more cutthroat and intensity. But for a first season, I'm cool with it not being that way, because you just kind of it's kind of like a reunion, kind of like the Real World reunion. It's just like a reunion of all your favorite characters coming back together, competitors coming back together. And then season 2 and 3 and 4 can all be that's when the real brass knuckles and bringing out your boxing gloves and stuff.
Any final thoughts on the season from your end, Chantal?
Well, obviously, you guys both know that I loved it. I workshopped in my mind what the name of that season could be called. Aged meat. Fine aged meat is what the season would be called. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. You guys know I've been watching it alongside with them. And so, I've been on sort of these journeys with them. And before there's social media and all that stuff, I was really excited about seeing the challenge because, oh my God, they're back. I get to see these characters that I've been growing up with. And so it was really nice to see all these people, whether I was big fans of them or not, back on the screen, because there was still some sort of familiarity with them. There's still some an honestness in them being on the screen. It wasn't for clout. It wasn't for fans, followers, even the money. I know a lot of them needed the money, but it wasn't all about that. And they're just we're just dynamic people that I was interested in seeing all of their story arcs. And so I loved it. I think that whomever has been taking on the editing, the music, the casting, if it's different from the main season, I think that they should maybe reflect on that and see why things are working so well on this one. Because I think that they did an excellent job. One of you guys mentioned Champs versus Pros and Champs versus Stars and how it wasn't really that. I mean, I loved it. I watched it because I'm a fan, but it wasn't that dynamic, it wasn't that amazing. And this wasn't that at all. I felt like I was watching the challenge. I felt like I was back watching with these people that I've loved for so long, playing the game that I've grown up with. And so thumbs up for me. I'll watch any season of this. And right now, if they put both of these on at the same time slot, I would watch All Stars over the main season. So just saying.
They'll never do that, Chantal.
I know,
They're not going to compete with themselves.
I like it better.
I'll be honest. I didn't think I was surprised that they put on All Stars while Double Agents was still on. I thought they would try to push them aside, but I guess because they could put on the Paramount Plus trailer during the challenge, Double Agents, that was to try to get people to actually sign up. But I was just shocked that they put it on at the same time, because I thought they would try to lessen how little we have of the off season. I thought they would try to lessen the blow of not having a challenge. But now it's we had 6 weeks of 2 seasons, and now 3 weeks or 4 weeks of a month of All Stars left, and then we have question mark whenever this Challenge 37 will come to our TVs.
I'm sure it's September. No?
Yeah,
We'll
so I think final thoughts from my end is that I absolutely loved the season. I knew 8 out of the 20 or so people that came into the season, and I ended up falling in love with the other 12 that I didn't know, and I enjoyed it. So it showed that even for a new school fan, you can go back and watch this season and still enjoy it. Even for me, the show comes first. The format of the challenge, what it is, comes first, and then the cast is second to that. Obviously, you want a good cast, but I like the format. I'm a big fan of the challenge. I will continue to watch the All-Star season. I'll continue to watch the new seasons as they come out. I'm not as low on it as some of you guys, but then again, it's because I'm a new school fan and I appreciate that. It's like I said before, it's kind of weird because in Survivor, I hate anything new, any new twists, anything that messes with the format. Now I know what new school Survivor fans must feel like when they're talking to me, this old salty Survivor fan talking about the format on there.
Bare bones, no trinkets, no doodads, just the game. Like that. I'm like that too. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that we've learned from the challenge All-Stars being on Paramount Plus, firstly, let's make it global. Let's make sure there's fans all around the world. Here I'm sitting in New Zealand, Chantel's sitting in Canada. I know there are fans in Australia, South Africa, and the UK. Like, it is a global thing, so make it available globally for people to be able to watch it, because fans will find a way to watch it, and you're losing money because they're watching it in ways they probably shouldn't. Just put it out there, make it accessible to everyone. And I think this is the future of any reality TV going forward. We should get reality shows going onto streaming platforms. If a lot of these shows want to survive long-term, Survivor, The Challenge, you name it, all of it, put it on platforms where it's easily accessible to everyone. And I really think it's the future. So overall, really happy with the season. If you guys got to this point within the show, it's been great having you here on the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, comment, tell us what you thought of the season. Who do you think is right on their takes and their calls? I'll probably be wrong most of the time here because a lot of it is old school, not new school. But we had a lot of fun talking about this season, and we're going to be doing we're going to do another podcast as well when we get into the reunion next week, which looks like there's a lot more drama compared to the actual season that's ahead for us on the reunion. So I'll be happy to dive into that as well, Chantel, with you after next week when we see the reunion. Angelcake, Drew, what do you have going on your channel during the off season, I guess now until September?
I'm going to be doing a ton of stuff. Same old challenge videos. I'm going to be pumping out a lot of challenge videos every single week, but I'm also going to be doing a lot of different style videos, different everything. So, I mean, I'm just going to be doing anything and everything and just seeing what sticks, what people like. Going to go into the old MTV reality shows, old reality shows in general. I mean, I've been watching Endurance, which is a like Survivor challenge mix for 13-year-old kids to 15-year-old kids. And Janae was actually on that as a little kid. So I've been watching that, but I'm going to be watching like Parental Control and making videos on that and Room Raiders and all that other stuff. And also while making the challenge, and Big Brother's coming up, Love Island. I'm still thinking I'm going to do something with that, but I'm not going to do like daily recaps for that. There's no way. There's no way. I'm not that insane.
Okay, good to know, because I'm probably going to cover it. So maybe you can come and talk on my channel sometimes about Love Island too.
Oh, definitely. I'll definitely come on.
So fun.
Yeah, so Chantal, what do you have coming up on your channel on Reality Realness with 3 S's, right?
Yes, with 3 S's. Well, before we get to that, though, we didn't really like solidify who won the draft here.
Yes, Chantal, I eat humble pie. You won.
Sorry, do you need to like put that up and just have the one page?
You had the first and second placed people on this. Let me just see if I can get it real quick. I didn't have it up because I thought it was pretty obvious.
Forgetting about this.
Yeah, he was trying to bury it.
I was just trying to like move on from it and ignore that it ever happened. But no, you ended up taking that. So let me just do a quick share of the screen here, and I will take my humble pie and eat it. All right, so this is where we were sitting coming into the finale with the players that were still left in the game. Obviously, ultimately, we've got Yes, who's going to finish in first place. I don't know how we're going to do this. We had Darrell in second place. We had Janae and Kellyanne both on third place. And was it Mark after that? I can't remember the exact order.
I believe so.
Mark. And then after that, do you guys have Elton?
I don't think they didn't tell us like the fourth place people, fourth, fifth, like the rest
Okay,
of it.
so ultimately in the top 5, I had 3 in the top 5. Chantal had 2 in the top 5, but she does take the top 2 spots there. So really well done there, Chantal. You called it out. I do think we both need to eat a little bit of humble pie about the fact that we chose yes so late in our draft picks in any case, because even when we had to redo the draft, I picked Mark ahead of yes, so well done to yes for defying all expectations and coming from behind and taking this thing out.
Well, I mean, we talked about it before, but like we didn't know what he was going to be capable of. We haven't seen him since like I think 2002. Like it's been a long time, and so we could see that he's not really that big into the politicking inside the house or whatnot. And so I think that it's surprising that he was able to get to the end and win, because I thought he should have been somebody that was thrown in all the time, that he maybe didn't have that many friendships and connections to stay in the game. So I think that we had a decent assessment of him, and that I do think that we should eat some humble pie because he proved us wrong in the end. But I'm happy to still have chosen him.
Yeah, 100%. No, a win is a win, regardless of where you choose them. Like, let's be honest. And for me, I think that again, some people did better than what we thought this season. Some people maybe fell a little bit short in some ways, but also that leaves the door open for them to come on another season and to prove themselves moving forward here. Chantal, is there anything that you wanted to shout out in regards to what you're doing on your channel moving forward?
For sure. If you guys are around in like an hour or so on Reality Realness with 3 S's, like we said, I will be doing another deep dive into this finale episode 2. So if you want to talk with me, Fanta, and Michelle at about 10 p.m. Eastern, we will be going live.
Nice. And we will be doing some off-season content at some point on this channel as the Challenge Insiders. We'll be looking at potentially doing some fantasy casting podcasts for maybe the next rival season, the next X's season, or I definitely want to talk about other players that I think could add a lot of value on the challenge, like new school players that we could bring in and maybe do a little bit of a cast of some of the better players that we've seen play other shows that we think could add some real value to the main show as well. So there will be some off-season content coming, but there will maybe be like a couple of weeks here for us just to take a little bit of a breather as I start changing gears into the new Survivor South Africa season. Survivor South Africa Immunity Island starts at season 8 for Survivor South Africa. That starts next week on Thursday, and really excited for that. It's going to be a really good cast moving forward. So if you're into Survivor as well, and if you're a super fan that likes to watch all of the versions for that, it will be at the same time that we normally used to do these recaps. This will be the time slot where we'll start doing the Survivor South Africa Immunity Island sort of shows going forward. Drew, are you a Survivor fan at all? I believe you said you do watch Survivor.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's 40 and it is thriving, and I love it so much. Yeah. I can't wait for more seasons.
Have you dabbled in the international realm for Survivor at all? Have you seen any of the Australian Survivor? South
Australian, I've seen a few Australian, but nothing else. Like I've been trying to find more and like more accessible ways, but I've definitely seen some of the Australian, but nothing else. Like I need to get up on all the Survivor stuff because I'm surprised I haven't tried to watch more during this long break of Survivor.
I'll help you out.
Yeah, we need to. I was going to say, Chantal, we need to help him out, and we need to convert you because there's some really good seasons out there. And again, the concept of Survivor is just a great concept. So you take it anywhere in the world and you do it, and I think you're going to get some really exciting results with it. All right, guys, it's been great having you. It's been great talking to you, Drew. Thanks for joining us again on the podcast as always. Chantal, we'll be talking next weekend about the reunion, so I look forward to seeing you then.
Ciao.